Not yet. There we are. Okay. Now we're off to a good start. All right. And we got half the people here. We're just right. All right. All good. So, what we're going to do today is look at getting our email servers up and configured. All right. We're going to understand some theory about email so that we know how it's working, so our setup makes sense to us. All right. Now this is just a little bit sideways because Monday, for that group that had a lab on Monday, all right, we talked about setting up the web server. And the web server, setting it up is fine, but the reason we're setting it up is for the mail. Right? And so we're going to get the mail set up this morning, go through that process, all right? And then this afternoon, for the people who have lab this afternoon, we'll catch up with configuring the web server. And at that point, we are just one small step away from having our whole base system ready. All right, so that means we're right on track. We're right on schedule. Okay. And next week, all right, by Monday, all of the details will be up about the full assignment and what we'll be doing in the second half of the semester, and due dates and submission links and all of that. All right. All that is going to be ready by Monday. All right. So it's not there today, but we've got important things to do today. All right. So that's not a problem. And by Monday, we'll be able to say, yay, we got our whole foundation ready, and we're ready to take a well-deserved semester break and come back and start on new and more new and wonderful things. Okay? So we're going to look at let me get to Moodle here for a second. There it is. And where are we at here? Slide. Topics by week. Just to check here. Oh, look at this. We're right on schedule. All right. And so next week, we just need to cover a small bit of theory about LVAP. Sorry to say it's a bit dry, but there's a whole vocabulary that comes with LVAP that we just need to get oriented to some of the concepts and terms with LVAP. And the LVAP server, we're just going to basically set it up. But there's only a few steps for that, all right? And all of that part that we'll be doing is just the very familiar things about setting permissions and getting the server started and doing a little bit of editing in the configuration file so that we can see that we've got communication with the server. All right. And then, as we say, semester break, submit system video. Right. It's not the first day of semester break. As I say, tentatively, let's say the due date will be, there's the 18th. So tentatively, we'll say the due date is going to be the 23rd of October. All right. So you can see Today is 7th. We got a little bit of time left, right, before we hit that deadline. So everything should be pretty comfortable. All right, so this is our PowerPoint, this is the 05 mail one, right? And that covers configuring the mail server, configuring the web server, and a little bit of debugging, right, that we'll get on to next week. But our main concern this morning is to go through and understand how the email works, right, and look at the practical side of what we need to do to test our mail server. That's in the TinyNet Base System Videos tab. Shift down just a little bit past the clone. All right. And here too, mail via Telnet, mail configuration fixes, and watching the mail get delivered. It's set up like that on the TinyNet site, which is why there's 3 short videos here. All right. Let me do it this way. All right, when we get here to configure mail, all right, testing, debugging. This one is just some background documentation and information. It's for a little bit of extensions. It's not really important, all right? But the videos cover the testing and debugging in Configure Mail, all right? And there's also a video for configuring Squirrel Mail. As I say, that's the one half of our class looked at it on Monday. The other half will talk about that this afternoon. So let's start off with the PowerPoint so that we can understand how mail works. All right, you might think that, you know, when we send a mail, it just goes ka-ching and shows up in the inbox on the other end. All right, but actually, it's a bit more complicated than that. All right. But between mail and the way the web service works is pretty much the model for all kinds of messaging, right? Whether we're using WhatsApp or instant messengers or anything that we have of messaging, right? A lot of it now is going to be web-based, so it will rely on the web server, right? But internally, the way it's going to be working, the email model, even though email is not quite as, it's not quite the universal mission critical application as it was. It used to be, that used to be absolutely true, all right? Not so much anymore, but it's still the model for all of our current messaging systems like WhatsApp, or even, let's not go too far with it, but for the messaging, yeah, it's still very much the model. All right. So email, that's why it's such a good example, right? And it still is very much a core service for enterprise networks. So that's why we need to understand how it works, right? And we use production level software for our email, right? That makes it just a little bit complicated to get deeply into the configuration because there are so many configuration options, right? But the happy news is that most of that is taken care of already by our default configurations, the configurations that get copied onto the server when you run the set role script from the config ISO. You need to do that for every server. It's exactly the same process for every server, except the gateway. We talked about that all last week. Right? Same process for all the servers. Just pick it off the menu and say, okay, reboot, and it will put in the DHCP clients and activate all of the startup scripts and activate all of the specialized software that we need, with a couple of small exceptions. So we're going to focus on this part of the network diagram that we see all the way through, right? We're going to focus on just getting this connection here taken care of, all right? Then we can test, but this connection here should be all ready for us. And then when we configure the web server to handle PHP, right, we'll be able to open our website in Chrome or Safari or Edge or whatever our favorite normal browser is, right? Open up our Squirrel Mail app from our web server. Works just like Gmail, so we can create a new email message. And when we hit the send button, it's going to go to the mouse guy postfix here on the gateway, who's going to look at it and pass it along to his counterpart, mouse guy, on the mail server, who is going to pass it along to another app called Dovecot to get it into the mailbox, right? And again, when we use Squirrel Mail, we'll be able to see all the messages in our inbox. And eventually, we'll be able to connect Squirrel Mail to the LDAP server, so we have a proper address book. And that is the fundamental architecture of all of our enterprise systems currently in these modern times. But our business today is right here, right? Getting this connection set up, debugged, right? Because there's a couple of little configuration things that need to be done here in order to send an email and get it delivered into the mailbox. And the way we're going to do that is kind of fun, because we're not going to use this one. We're going to jump in right here in the middle, and we're going to manually send an email. We're going to just create an email and poke it into the mail server. All right, we're going to talk directly to the server, pretend we're this postfix here or this Squirrel Mail here sending an email. All right, we're going to jump in here in the middle and pretend we are one of those servers, talk directly to the mail server, and find out how to make the changes that need to be made in order to get that delivered into the mailbox here. Oh, breakfast time, alphabet soup, yum, 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 yum. Way back in the day, now 1986, 1988, all right, people didn't know how mail was going to work, right? But they'd been working on it for a long time. Actually, they've been working on it for almost 10 years, right? It's about 1978 people were trying to figure out how mail was supposed to work. And once they got to a certain point in their development efforts, somebody got the bright idea of taking this to the ISO, the International Standards Organization, and the ITU, the International Telecommunications Organization, and making a formal standard for email. And just like, and it's just following on from what happened with the network stack, right? We've got the ISO 7-layer model that we talked about, and we've said that, you know, the 7-layer model, layer 5 and layer 6, everybody ignores it because it was an ISO committee invention, right? But in practice, it doesn't do much for us. Oh, we've got a little of the same effect right here, right? Because the ISO decided that there should be a formal set of 3-letter acronyms to describe everything, which gives us a lovely bit of, as I say, alphabet soup for breakfast this morning, right? But it does show us the architecture in a kind of boxes and arrows sort of a way, right? When we talk about Squirrel Mail running on our web server, right, that is the mail user agent that has the proper user interface, right? Its capabilities need to be able to get email, take on the role of the mail access agent, right, using a protocol called IMAP. Is an alternative one that nobody uses anymore called Post Office Protocol, POP. All right. IMAP is Internet Message Access Protocol, in case you're interested. Right? And that's the one that we'll be using. There is the mail submission agent, right? The first one that gets the mail from the sender, right? In our configuration, that's going to be our Mouse Guide postfix on the gateway. And that's the one that decides if this is going to be a short distance message, a local delivery for someone on that server, or if it needs to get transported on another hop across the network. The mail transport agent, and again, these are roles, all right? These are roles, but the mail transport agent decides if it needs to go to another hop. Once it gets to the other hop, it decides if it's a local delivery or something else that needs to have something else done with it, go on another hop on its direction, or if we can deliver it to a mailbox. That's the role of Mouse Guide postfix here on our mail host, right? Is to manage the local delivery and to actually maintain our mailboxes, right? We use a separate app called Dovecot, just because it has some really nice features that postfix doesn't have. Postfix is optimized for mail transport agent, really, right? And Dovecot is managed for, Dovecot is optimized, specialized for mail delivery and maintaining mailboxes. So that makes a very powerful combination, right? And if you poke around, you're going to find that there are lots of people describing the interface between Postfix and Dovecot for their particular Linux distro, right? Those instructions are going to work. They're not going to work exactly for our Linux distro, right? But ours is another example of how that interface works. So, alphabet soup, this will not be on the final exam, all right? But just want to introduce it. We've got a kind of nicer diagram here, much more colorful anyway, all right? Showing the relationships here between our servers. Let's cut that top part off just for a minute, all right? Focus on the TinyNet part. So Squirrel Mail is our user interface, right? It communicates with Postfix on the gateway, all right, using this particular protocol, mail transport, simple mail transport protocol on port 587. It communicates with Dovecot to retrieve mail from the mailbox, right, using a protocol called Internet Mail Access Protocol, runs on port 143, right, and the mouse guys communicate port 25, same protocol. Now, I put these numbers here, right, because over time, you get to recognize them, right, but we're not going to focus on port numbers. Just the names are the ones that are going to be more of concern to us. You want to see this all flattened out, and just to mention this while we're here, all right? You go back here to our general tab, all right? There's a kind of flattened out table representation of this here, right, about the lines of communication. All right, let's set that aside for a minute. Check the chat. There we go. All right. So, if our bridged interface gets an IP address, all right, we could actually send mail to our Gmail account, for example. All right. We won't get it in because Gmail can't access our DNS on the gateway. All right. But if there was a way for it to do that, right, if Gmail could do that, we could actually send and receive email from anywhere on the internet through our bridged interface. All right, so ouch, man, a little bit back to that jargon here, but let's bear with it, because there are a couple of concepts here that we just need to get familiar with about the mail, the internals of the mail system. And again, these internals are the model for all of our other messaging systems. So when we send an email, it's put in what they call an envelope, some extra information about where it came from, what's the date, who's the sender, who's the receiver, and a bunch of other things that are sometimes kind of ill-defined because everybody likes to extend the mail in ways to suit themselves and suit their own local system. But we call that the message header, right, or the envelope. Message headers can be and are easily forged by a user, and that's what we're going to do when we send our own spam phishing email, right? Pretending to be a proper mail server. Normally, these headers are changed and deleted by mail transport agents as it goes across the network. Keeps a history of every system that it passes through. We'll be able to see that. But every email client will have a way to show these headers. I can't remember how it works in Outlook and Gmail, all right? But we'll be able to do that in Squirrel Mail very easily. And if you look at your email, you'll be able to find that button or link, all right, that lets you look at the mail headers for a message, all right? And one of the things that there is a unique ID. And again, that helps us track the message end to end. Right? Again, back the networks were not very reliable, not nearly as reliable as they are now. So this was a really critical bit of information. It's also a really critical bit of information if we're trying to hunt down spammers and people doing email phishing. So this is what we're going to do, and this is what is going on in the videos here, is we're going to pretend to be a mail server. That's why we set up Telnet and ExINetD back when we were doing our first things first. All right. Telnet is regarded as an ancient legacy, totally insecure program. But that only means we shouldn't use it across the network. It's very helpful for us when we're trying to debug services, right? Because if we can use Telnet from our keyboard, which is the way we set it up with the 127.0.0.1 only from directive in ExINetD, that means we can only use it from the keyboard. But that means we can talk directly to our server if we know the commands for the protocol that it expects. All right, so that's going to be one that we're going to take advantage of because it's not that tough. It takes a little bit of typing, but it's not that bad. And a very, very useful technique to know. All right. So there's only this there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 commands here that we need to be concerned with, right? Some of these are extra ones that don't really get involved in a simple email, right? So we're going to do that. We're going to do that as an experiment, right? We're going to get started on that in just a few minutes. Let's just take one more minute, though, to look at these different roles here. All right. The MSA, again, this is our mail submission agent or the mail user agent, right? That has our proper user interface for creating mail messages, writing them, putting on attachments, whatever we want to do, all right? And getting them into the system. The first one, all right, mail submission agent, is important because it's the one that we can use to do any kinds of complex manipulations, all right? We can authenticate our clients. We can run antivirus filters. We can do everything that we need to before this email gets into the system. This is a kind of a global agreement about best practice for designing our mail servers. I'm sorry, our mail server architecture. All right? We're not going to do any of that, but it's important for us to know that this is where it should be done. We should be doing all of this before it goes into the system, so that after that, right, this goes as quickly as possible, transporting it from hop to hop, right, across the network. The relay mail transport agents hop to hop across the network to get to its final destination. These are taken care of for us, right? The MX record, MX, as everybody would obviously know, stands for mail exchanger, but we're not going to worry about that. That one's already in our DNS mass DNS, and we're just going to pass by on that one. All right. And again, the idea here of an open relay is another one that is already taken care of in our postfix configuration. The postfix configuration for the TinyNet is a really good example that you can use on any other system running postfix, really, right? Everybody has their preferences, but the TinyNet one is properly configured for all of these, what do I want to say, all of these aspects, right? They're already taken care of in our postfix configuration, right? Because there are so many different possibilities, okay? Mail architecture is one that takes some thought and effort to get set up by the systems administrators, right? Lots of decisions to make, lots of documentation to read, right? We're gonna not dig that deep into the whole process, all right? Because it could take us days or weeks to figure out postfix 530. I think there's more like 570 in later versions. It keeps getting more and more because every systems administrator who is a good friend of one of the developers keeps saying, hey, look at this. This would be a nice thing to have. And so it goes through the process and it gets added in, and it just adds and adds and adds. Right? Now, postfix is pretty much totally accepted everywhere. It used to be the most important one was SendMail. SendMail is a huge nightmare, right? Because it does everything in a kind of object-oriented, interpreted style. Back in the day, back in the 90s, everybody used SendMail and had nightmares about it. I think that's why they invented postfix, right? Postfix has become the de facto standard, right? Postfix plus Dovecot, very, very common arrangement, right? But between those two, we're looking at 700 plus possible configuration options. It's just too much, right? But we do have a few things to do, but we're focused on Dovecot. Postfix is ready for us, all right, so that we don't get bogged down into the internal details of how it works. Leave that for you to figure out someday when you have a real purpose for it. Okay, so that's enough of an orientation. All right. What we want to do next is turn to the actual practicalities of getting our email system configured. And since that is a bit of a different topic, I suggest that let's take a little break here at 9:20. Let's come back at 9:20, right, and get started on the practical side of getting our email configured and delivered. All right, the sun has shifted a little bit, so not quite so ghosted out as I was before. All right. Okay, so with that basic idea of how the pieces fit together, you just have to remember that there's a lot of complex software here with complex interactions. All right, and so we need to go slowly, set things up one step at a time, all right, and build this system up piece by piece, all right, to make sure that everything gets properly integrated, everything works properly together. All right, so that means we need to have DNS ready. We need to have DHCP ready. All right, we need to have those components in place so that we get IP addresses and we can use names instead of constantly typing IP addresses. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get the mail to deliver itself into the mailbox. That's what we've got to configure now. All right. Once we get that interface ready between Postfix and Dovecot, all right, the other interface between the gateway Postfix and the Mailhost Postfix, that one should be ready for us already. It should work fine as long as our DNS is working and our IP addresses are correct. And after that, we add in the web server, and we've got 90% of our system complete. There's only a couple of small things that we need to do to get the LDAP server up so that we get a proper address book in our email client. So we're going to go for video support with this one. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with, and I think I better run this up. Let's move that one. Load that. All right. So we're going to come down here, and again, we're going to do this one at a time. We're going to focus on this one right here. This one should be taken care of for us. All right. And then when we set up the web server to handle PHP, this one will be ready so that we can open this up in our Chrome or Edge or whatever, all right, and get a proper interface for our email. But for right now, we're going to have an improper interface. All right. We're going to go for this first link called testing. All right. And then we will move on to debugging. All right. Because our first test is guaranteed to fail. All right. We've got this dare to fail attitude, and our first test is not going to work. All right. But debugging is about what we'll see in the log file. All right. Give us a little bit of introduction or first level of practice. All right. Looking at the log files and sorting out what the message means we need to do. All right. The message is there for our information, but it doesn't tell us exactly what we need to do. All right. So we've got the answers for what we need to do here, right? And we can fix that pretty quickly, all right, in the configuration file. So the video follows this, except it doesn't go too much into the details here. All right. It focuses on this first part, which is sending mail, all right, using Telnet. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our mail host and we're going to connect to the local postfix server, all right, and send some spam phishing email here, all right, and then we can look at the log files to see what might be going wrong, all right, and then once we get the proper changes made, okay, once we get the changes made to get the mail to deliver properly, then we can come back, repeat this process, get one email delivered, right? And we can actually test using the same technique. We can test and see if we can retrieve that properly from the mailbox. And again, that's in our TinyNet Base System videos page here on Moodle. Let's skip down this part. We'll talk about this part next week, right? Because this one is just a kind of a reference about what things should look like when everything's ready and running properly. These steps need to be done in this order and done properly to get where we are today. Right? These two are a little bit optional, but interesting. Where we need to focus here is mail via Telnet. Right? That's what we're doing here in test 1. And as I say, our first test is going to fail. It's going to have some messages in the log file that we need to fix. The second video shows us, walks us through the process of fixing the configurations parts that need to be fixed. All right. And then we can send one more mail using the same technique as the first one. Make sure it gets delivered. All right. Then we just need to add another name for the mail server to our DNS and get our web server configured. And at that point, we'll be able to access that system from our host system browser. So let's start with the first experiment here. Push this up, I think. See how much screen space we can get here for this. Too much. Back that up that way a little bit. There we go. There we go. Let's try it. Like that. Let's try it like that. All right. So let's start here and open this one in a new tab. All right. So we start off just with positioning like we saw before. All right, testing the email service with SMTP and IMAP where it is on the TinyNet menu. This is going to always work better. All right. We do have the subtitles down here in the yellow bar. All right. It gets a little bit blanked out by my need to pause. All right. But there's some guidance down here. But it still works better to have the TinyNet site open in one tab up here, all right, alongside your video, so you can just take a closer look at the actual instructions. All the videos, that's good advice. So get the positioning done here, configure the mail, testing, that's where we're at with this page, and debugging in the other tab. All right. So move down to test one. Have it right next to your virtual machines. All right. I've customized my host names a little bit. All right. That's one step that you need to do for the assignment. I've done it in advance. All right. We'll talk about that one next week, all right, or today if we have a little bit of extra time. I've got my 56, 66, 76 on the gateway, ETH123. In this particular case, Unify gave me an IP address for my ETH0. Right? It doesn't always happen, so we don't worry about it. I need to have my gateway running, right, so that I can get my proper IP address for my mail server, netc 76. Something you just got to remember and double check, all right, to make sure that we're ready to roll with our proper subnet. If this says MyTiVM, a couple of people sent me some Teams messages about. They say this one says MyTiVM and net something like NetV or something like that. All right. That means you haven't run the setrole script from the config ISO on this server and chosen TinyNet mail server off the menu. All right. Got to be sure to do that to get Postfix and Dovecot installed on this server. Minimize that one to get it out of the way. Get logged in. This is a command line command that you absolutely must memorize. Netstat minus, can't see the minus very well, but netstat minus TULP. That says, show me the status of the TCP and UDP listening ports. And what we should see here, I have to read this kind of upside down a little bit. Bottom one here says, this is Dovecot listening on the IMAP port. This 1001, 1013, 974, 969, 960, like that, those are process ID numbers, right, that are different every time. It can be different every time we boot up. Just by accident, they might be the same, but we expect those to be different across different servers, right? So keep that in mind while you're looking at the examples here. Those numbers are not expected to be the same, right? Boot PC, Telnet, SSH, HTTP, IMAP, those should be the same. Something's missing from this list, though. This is why you need to do a netstat minus TULP, right? Because what I don't see here is postfix. Problem. What do I need to do? I need to start the postfix service, see if it's going to work. Not sure why it didn't start up, but the easy thing to do is just call the startup script directly with its whole path name. etcrc.d is where all of the startup scripts are located. All right. They all start with RC and the name of the service, right? And we can use start or stop. Sometimes we can use restart, but usually we just say stop and then start to restart the service. It's not running now, so we're just going to start it up like that. If it was running, I just touch up arrow to get the last command back. That's another shortcut you should really be familiar with. All right? Just up arrow once, I got back the postfix start. Up arrow twice, I got back my netstat. Saves a lot of typing. All right, and now I've got postfix on the submission port and postfix SMTP. All right, Dovecot, Monkey, SSH, boot P. All right, and XINetD on the Telnet port. All right, so I've got XINetD on Telnet. That means I can use our debugging strategy here. Right. If I don't see XINetD on the Telnet port, I did some kind of something wrong on my 2Clone server, and I'm going to have to go back and look at those instructions. I don't have to change it on the 2Clone server, right, but I should, but I absolutely must change it here, otherwise I won't be able to send my mail. All right, so now I'm ready to go. I got my services up and running properly. All right, so come back here, get my instructions up, and follow them one step at a time. Clear the screen first, that helps. Telnet localhost 25. All right, localhost 127.0.0.1, a reserved address by the standards. All right, port 25 is the SMTP port that we saw in the notes there. And again, it's useful to recognize those, but here we'll just kind of follow the instructions. Ouch. All right. So this means I've got a connection, live connection directly to the mail server software. So I follow these instructions to create an email. Now, this first one, hello, says here, sending host name, right? Now, you can put that in, or you can put in something else, because this one doesn't matter. It's only in the log file and the email headers. Postfix doesn't check this or anything to see if it's actually real, although it probably should, which means it can, but we're not checking it, so it can be anything. So hello, qq.aa.zz. All right, the 250 is the response that says, all right, I know your name, and this is my name. Then the mail command comes next. And again, we can use anybody's email address here, as long as they don't mind. We're going to make one up, theboss@example.com. Okay. You got to be careful with this colon space here. That's an important part of the syntax. All right. If you don't get that right, you get an error message instead of okay. All right. It means you got to type the whole thing again. No up arrow trick here. All right. No up arrow trick here. The receipt to, this is a special email address on our systems. mailadmin@mailhost.tinynet.edu. All right, that one has to be correct because it gets used in other places in the configuration. We'll see how that works a little bit later. RCPT means recipient, all right? And 2 is the part that comes out. It's extracted in the headers when it's displayed. So, recipient, colon, space, mailhost.tinynet.edu. Oop, mailadmin, sorry, what am I saying? mailadmin@mailhost.tinynet.edu. That doesn't get checked until the mail gets delivered, all right? But okay here means that it looks like the right thing. The next command is data. All right, I'm going to see a weird message come back on this one. Enter. All right, now it says end data with curlif. All right, this just means a dot on a line by itself. It seems like a very weird way to say that, but technically, I don't know, these are white space characters. It's part of the email standard and whatever. But curlif means a dot on a line by itself. So this is where we put in the subject and the rest of the message, and then a dot on a line by itself, and quit. So system upgrade. And this is how easy it is to send spam phishing emails. You get a message from the boss that says, we're upgrading the system. Could make it help desk if you wanted to. Please send me your password. See if anybody silly enough to fall for it. All right. Put in a blank line and then a dot on a line by itself. And now this is the one we're going to pay attention to. Postfix is going to come back with a big unique number. This is a random number. And if you look closely at this, we pair it up, 5B, B0, 0E6. This is a hexadecimal number, all right, that Postfix uses as a unique identifier. So if we just keep track of the first part of this, like 5BB0, all right, when we look in the log files, we'll be able to find all of the messages that are related to this particular email. All right. Now, Postfix is made to handle thousands of emails a minute, all right, even tens of thousands of emails a minute. All right. So this actually gets to be very busy and very important when we're running a kind of production email system. So now I quit. All right, that sends a bye. That's bye-bye from Postfix. All right, connection closed by foreign host says the telnet connection is closed. All right, and that's what it takes to send some spam phishing email. It's just that easy. Getting it delivered, that's a little bit of another story here. Let's see what's in the last 40 seconds of our video for us. Oh, Startup MC. All right. And move up a little bit in our file. Oh, move down to var. All right. Var log. This is going to be another one of our favorite places in the file system. This is where the log files are stored for all of our applications. All right. Just pop over here just for a minute. Oops. That. This one. Here under orientation and log files, there we go. Orientation log files has a very handy table, right, of where to find the messages from DNS mask. All right, it's in var log dnsmask.log. That's obviously going to be empty if it's on any place else than the gateway. All right, DHCP client. This one is going to have entries on all of our servers. All right, var log mail log. All right, is where Postfix sends its messages. Mailbox delivery, Dovecot LDA, local delivery agent, right? That's the delivery messages. When we check in to see our email, right, get recorded in a different log file. And if we want to change this around, right, we need to look in one configuration file or another, right, to change the file name or the location or whatever. All right, so those that whole list is right here. Right? There's some clutter in var log, but most of these are important, okay, because most of these are applications that we're using. All right. All right, let's get back to where we should be here. All right. So we look in var log and the mail log file. Cruise down the list. Oops. There it is. F3 to view. All right. And you can see that there's a lot of stuff in here that maybe does and maybe does not make sense. But the trick to the log file right? As it says here on the debug page, start at the bottom, look for things you recognize, and then think through the problem, right? And this is a skill for systems administrators, all right? Look in var log, mail log to see what's there, what postfix told us, but start down at the bottom and look up, all right? Look for things you recognize, then think through the problem. So, I don't think we're at the bottom yet. Now, move all the way down to the bottom. Just use the arrow key. All right. Now, we look for things that we recognize here. Disconnect from localhost 127.0.0.1. All right. So that one definitely is the quit from that we sent using Telnet. What we got here is the timestamp. We got the timestamp here, the name of the application, and the process number. All right. And so let's look up one. This one is really long, but here's the timestamp. Right? Everything starts with a timestamp. So to move that up, it's 1:24, 6 seconds before the last one. 5BB, that's the one, that's the message we sent, 5BB0, I remember that, all right? To mail admin at mailhost, status, deferred, temporary failure, command output, LDA, error, var run dovecot stats writer, permission denied, can't open log file, var log dovecot.lda, permission denied, permission denied, permission denied. Ouch, Smith. Think that one through. Permission denied, can't open the file, means that somehow that's a problem with the owner and or the permissions on that file. And as we know, we can change that with MC, right? And chmod and chown from the file menu. So that's going to be one thing that we have to do, right? And we can track the rest of the journey here, right? Can track the rest of the journey here just by looking at that unique identifier that we saw when postfix accepted the email that we sent for delivery. All right, I don't think there's going to be much going on here in the last 10 seconds of our video. No, there wasn't. All right, so that's what it looks like when it fails. Let's go through and do some fixing and see what it looks like when it gets delivered. Oops, here we go here. All right, so the mail configuration fixes walk us through the process of making the necessary configuration changes so that when we send mail with Telnet another time, we'll be able to see it delivered to the mail admin at mailhost.tinynet.edu inbox. All right. So this one picks up where the other one left off. All right. Now this one's just, I'm going to just back that up just a second. All right. We looked at the mail log in MC. All right. But this command tail, all right, will show us the end of the log file already. All right. You just run it at the command line, just say tail and the name. Right? You have to know the name and you have to type it in. That's the only bad part. Right? But it takes us immediately to the end of the log file. And again, this permission denied message here is the first thing that we've got to take care of. All right? There are actually a couple of other things. If we kept sending the Telnet mail, we're going to skip that part. We'll just, same thing over and over again. Too much typing. Can't open the file, permission denied. All right? That's the first one that we're going to have to fix by fixing the group and the permissions. All right? And if we did that again, we went to the trouble of sending another email by Telnet, it still would not be delivered because we have not fixed one other configuration file here, right? Which is called home vmail mail minus pwd. Right? So look through this debugging the email document here to give you a little bit better understanding of how it works. All right, but really the change itself is very trivial. All right, the error is because it only says mail instead of saying mail host. So that's a pretty simple change to make. All right, so let's get on with that part. All right, the video here just walks us through those steps without going back and sending more email via Telnet. So we fire up MC, all right, and get to the debug page, all right. And where are we going to start? Go to var log. All right, that said permission denied on this particular file in var log. So what we're going to do is actually we're going to change the permissions of the owner, whichever one needs to be done, on both of these files, because if they're not right, Dovecot can't use them. And if Dovecot can't use its log files, it doesn't want to work. It says I can't play my way, so I won't play at all. So I highlighted dovecot.imap, did my F9 to get to the menu up here, and now file, chmod, chown. Let's go chown. What I need to do is I need to change the username to Dovecot, the owner name to Dovecot, and the group name to Dovecot. Set that, Dovecot LDA, F9, file, chown. This one set to the system account vmail, And the group name is vmail. All right. Permissions, RW, RR. All right. Now the difference there is that Dovecot handles the delivery. Vmail is the system user that owns everything that is about the mailboxes. And that's just the way Dovecot developers decided to do things. Okay, so we're going to go along with their configuration and change those owners. Set. Then we get out of MC, right? And now we're going to go to this step about fixing the groups, all right? Because if we try to do it now, we'd just get another permission error, all right? And so what we need to do is add the user Dovecot to the vmail group, add the user vmail to the Dovecot group, and that's going to sort out the configuration. Now, again, there's about 5 kilometers of documentation that describe that for us, all right? But we can hop directly to the solution if we like. Right now, Dovecot is in the vmail group and vmail in the Dovecot group. We need to get both of those in both groups. Dovecot, vmail, 2 groups there. Then the username. Up arrow. Okay, look at this. How easy was that? Up arrow once. Type in the other username. Up arrow once, twice. Fail. And we're finished. How nice is that? Right? Okay. Now we're back to MC. Right? Moving on to another step, which is fixing this account name for user unknown. Right? Again, we're not sending. If we keep sending Telnet email, we can uncover these errors one by one, but it's too much typing. All right. So we take the shortcut here, and what we need to do is we need to fix the name of the mailbox. All right. What we have here is the name of the mailbox, plain text, password to log in, and a few other fields that are explained in the configuration file. And really all we need to do is change this where it says mail here to say mail host. But let's just go ahead and do it. Home, vmail, file, and chmod. Make sure that these permissions are set right. Mail minus pwd. This is the file that we need to change with. Oh, let's check its vmail. All right, vmail owns everything for deliveries. Oops, back up to just a second here. All right, I'm just checking the permissions to make sure they were right. I haven't changed anything yet. All right, but what I need to do here is F4 to edit this mail minus pwd file. It kind of jumps by here when we hit cancel there. All right, now I'm going to just touch F4 to edit this file. All right. Now, again, all of these that start with a hashtag are comments. They are documentation. Okay. And this explains the format of the line for the mailboxes. It explains a little bit about the importance of the mail admin account, all right, because all kinds of messages will get pushed into this mail admin account. It's a kind of a central place for managing our mail server. But down here, this is the important line here, all right? This is the only account we have set up right now. So what we got to do is change this to mail host. Then we'll copy this line down below and create a new account with a TP number, a personal account for email. So just use the arrow keys to get placed and put a host there. That's all nice. Then we copy this again. Remember, F3, big B. All right, that turns on the highlight. Just move the arrow keys across, copy the whole line. All right, and then F5 to copy it in down below. And then F3 enough times to get rid of this big B. And we can make our changes. F5, paste it in. F3 a couple of times to make that big B go away. All right. And then we just delete the mail host, and I'm going to go put in my FACO TP number. Don't use my FACO TP number. Use your TP number. Make it your, make this your email address. All right. Also, make sure it's all lowercase. I'm not sure why Dovecot insists on that, but it does. All right. So once you put in your proper TP number here, all right, then just F2 to save and F10 to quit. And we're ready to roll. All right, quit MC, last 2 seconds here. And this is where the third one picks up. What we're going to do now is see what it looks like now that we've got it fixed. See what it looks like when the mail gets delivered properly. And again, we're just using Telnet to send the mail. All right. We could have dived right in and tried to do this from our web browser, but that would be way too much confusion, because we would, if it didn't get delivered, we wouldn't know how to start figuring out what went wrong. All right, so what am I doing here? Tail phone mail minus PWD. All right, show me the last 10 lines of that file. Hey, what happened there? Up arrow, back up, fix it. There we go. All right. So I've got my TP number address here, mailhost.tinynet.edu. All right. Oops, cut off my other one. Suppose I have put in tail minus 15 or something like that, and show me a few more lines. But never mind. Clear that mess away. All right. And We're back to Telnet localhost 25. Hello. Doesn't really matter what, as long as it's got some dots in it. Now we'll send mail from base anybody that we want to anybody we want to do our fishing for. All right, and we'll send that to recipient. We'll send that one to our personal email here at mailhost.tinynet.edu. Ask to match exactly what's in the mail minus PWD for Dovecot to know where to put it. Curlif is a line by itself. Here we go. Once again, reeling them in. This time we'll not specify username and password, but we'll go for the account detail. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, let's ask for everything. Why not? There we go. See if anybody falls for it. All right. Again, A409. Just want to keep that one in mind because we'll be able to distinguish this one from the last one in the log file. Now, this is the reason that we use Dovecot. All right. I just came up to home, and here's Vmail. When I go inside Vmail, bing, look what I've got. This one used to be here all by itself, but now I've got two new folders, and this is why we use Dovecot. Because when we fix the account names, Dovecot will recognize those changes automatically. And as soon as an email message comes in that it can match to an account in the mail minus PWD file, it automatically creates the inbox folder, all right, inside this folder, home Vmail. It's just so nice, all right? That's why it's worth the extra effort to configure it. Check var and log, we'll see some changes here, all right? Dovecot.imap has something in it now. Dovecot.lda, if you look back, that one used to be 0. Now it's got some messages in it, all right? And we can't see mail log here yet, but it will be bigger as well, right? Because Dovecot puts messages in these two. Postfix puts messages in not fail log, but mail log. All right. So look in Dovecot LDA. Oh, look at this. LDA. There's the there's the one for mail admin. That's the one I sent before. All right. Message ID. Oh, there it is. 05BB0. All right. Save mail to inbox. Yay, success. Save mail to inbox. Yay, success. There's our A409. Working. All right. Mail log. Again, I've got to go all the way down to the bottom because there's so much stuff here. All right. But A409 status equals delivered via Dovecot service. All right. This is all eight. Oh, there's my 5BB0. All right. 5BB0, mail admin, mail host, status equals sent, delivered via Dovecot. Yay! We're in business. All right, now I'll go inside and there's this folder called IMAP. Don't worry about this one. And subscriptions, start with a dot. Dovecot uses these internally. But this is the actual inbox. And this is, if we look inside here, you can see all of those mail headers and the envelope and everything that's been going on, right? Just in text mode. But this is actually what every mail client reads. They read this plain text one just like we see it here, and then do a little bit of magic to reformat it and present it in a much nicer kind of a mode. So all of this up here, return path, delivered, received, message IDs, X, IMAP X, status X, content length, all right? All of it up to the content length is considered the header, right? And again, our email client just picks this apart, shows us particular pieces of it, like from and subject, right? And the rest of it, it just kind of leaves hidden in the background. Same thing here, right? And again, one thing with received, if we look at the received line, this is the hello thing that we were typing in, right? Just a little bit of history here. This is the only place that shows up, so it doesn't really matter, all right, what we put in there, as long as it has some dots in it, so it looks like a domain name to Postfix. All right, so that's all there is to the mail. All right. Sending the email via Telnet and pretending you're a mail server, probably something you never thought of doing, something you never would think of doing all by yourself. Right? But it's very effective, right? And as I say here, right? Now that it's in, this is not really necessary, right? But now that it's in, we could come down here and test it by Telnet to the IMAP port, right? Get in touch with Dovecot directly, right? Get an OK Dovecot ready, right? We could play around and get Dovecot to serve up the number of messages, the list of folders, so on. And again, this is exactly what Squirrel Mail, our email client, is doing. It's using this information and it is parsing it out and rearranging it to display it in a very nice way. All right. So we can do a little bit more debugging, but we don't have time for a little bit of a rush. All right. We can consider that part optional. All right, there's one more video that we need to do here to make sure that our mail is completely set up. All right, I think let's just see what it's about. All right, this is fixing a new name in the DNS. All right, get logged in here. Oops, wait a minute. What am I looking for here? etc hosts. All right, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. All right, that's just demonstrating a ping. Show the name. If I ping gw.tinynet.edu, it comes back with the proper host name from etc hosts, all right, and the IP address, all right. That means my name resolution is working. I can use those two right there. That's what that's demonstrating. All right. Now, here's the part that we need to do. Run this up a little bit. All right. Is here in etc DNS mask.d. This is where the DNS mask configuration files are. And we just need to do a simple edit, just like we did to home vmail, to add a new name for our mail server to the all right. So we move into that directory, and then we just come down here and edit with F4 this file called cname. The other ones here are for their particular purposes. MX, we saw that one in lecture notes today, right? All right, but cnames is the only one that we're really going to be concerned about. Actually, we're going to be backing into this file for a number of different reasons, but always the same thing, adding new names to our DNS. So the way this works is, as it says up here, nice name like www.tinynet.edu, comma, space, and the ugly name from etc hostname. This has to match exactly, right, what is shown on the server when we start it up. Okay, and that means we can put in a thing like webmail. We can use webmail to contact our web server. We can use LDAP for the LDAP server. We can use mailhost, all right? But what we want to do is we're going to copy this line, paste it in below, and change this mailhost to mail.tinynet.edu. So we've got two names. Well, we've actually got three names for our mail server now. First, its official one, and then two alternative, nicer ones. Easier to remember. Exactly the same, just F3, turn on the highlight, arrow keys to move across, all right, move down, F5, copy it in, F3 a couple of times to get rid of the big D up here, and then just make it mail.tinynet.edu, F2 to save, F10 to quit. Now, this one is a little different than Dovecot, right? We just said that down there, and it just reminded me, right? When we changed home vmail, Dovecot picked it up automatically. That's not normal. Normally, when we change a server configuration file, then we need to stop and start the service, all right? Postfix, anything except that one file in Dovecot, we need to stop the service and restart it. And again, we saw how to do this just a little while ago. You call the file in etc rc.d, rc.dnsmask in this case, and put stop on the end, To stop it, up arrow, change stop to start. And then try it out with ping. That's our new name, mail.tinynet.edu. When you're using ping, ping will happily run for the rest of its life, or your life, until you hold control, touch C. That's what it looks like to stop it. All right. And again, just a little bit more ping testing in this video for that our name resolution is working properly. Just get a little accustomed to the idea that whatever name you type in here, it looks in the CNAMES file or etc host and comes back with the official name, shows the IP address, all right? And that means you're up, running, and connected. Okay. So, looking good. All right. We're in great shape if we get that part done. All right. And again, that will give us this setup. All right. Monday, we talked about this with one group. This afternoon, we'll talk about this part. We get the steps done. We've got this whole system set up. Only one little piece left to take care of. Let's stop the recording.